Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is REGANELITE here. Hello, everyone. How are you all doing? I hope you're all doing well. It is Tuesday. It's now time for another episode of the Snowflake's Corner, episode 51, where we cover news from outside of the UK. We're going to be talking about Syria. We're going to be talking a little bit about China and what could potentially be coming there. We're going to be covering a bit what's happening in Georgia as well. We're going to talk a little bit about the trial that Netanyahu is in as well. That's going to be an interesting discussion here, as well as Ghana had an election. Yes, I think it's one of the last elections of the year. Of so many elections we've had, it's one of the last elections that we'll talk about as well. And a last piece that we'll end on is obviously about the EU. The EU looking to reduce their dependence on the US, which is in terms of defense, which is completely understandable. We're going to read into that piece a bit later on as well. The date and time of this live stream is the 10th of December, if you didn't get it by the intro music, 2024 at 7 p.m. UK time. We are dual streaming live on youtube.com/ReganElite and on twitch.tv/ReganElite1. So, QA Library, good to see you there, buddy. Hope you're doing well. It's nice to see you in the chat there. And then anybody else who may be lurking on either chats, hope you're all doing well. Right, let's get started, guys. So first and foremost, let's talk about Syria, guys. I talked a little bit about it yesterday. I touched on it a little bit, but I really wanted to dive into it here today. So this first one, obviously, from Al Jazeera. So after taking Damascus, Syria's opposition begins a government formation. HTS linked Mohammed al-Bashir has been tasked with forming a transitional government. So as of right now, and now things can change. As we know, things can change, things can implode. But it looks like there is, at the moment, as of right now, a transitioning a transitional piece of power into government. And cross fingers, it all goes well. I'm not holding my breath on it because obviously there's lots of different factions, lots of different groups. So it can easily all turn sour. However, I think one thing that they all, despite all the indifferences and many of these factions have, and believe me, some of them are really nasty, is that they are much relieved that the regime is over, is gone. I do hope that this government does bring people, not only as it has done at the moment, seems to have brought people and lots of these groups together. Whether or not it will hold is obviously another thing. And I would hope that they would take their indifferences in a parliament of some sorts, rather than actually taking it up with the guns and the fighting. That is my hope. That is my genuine hope. I know it's very, very unlikely, but it's always nice to have a bit of optimism from that. I think it's good that that he has finally gone. I've been told, apparently I heard that he was given a Russian citizenship as well, so he will be a Russian citizen. He's a Russian citizen now. Would be interesting if somehow before his time, that if Putin was to, something was to happen to Putin, that Russia would send him back to Syria. Could you imagine what that would be? It would yeah, it would be quite brutal for him. But it's not all just about him. It's obviously about the regime and the people around and the government as well, because you have to remember that so many people were in prisons, tortured and whatnot. There was a lot of ethnic cleansing as well. A lot of these people who are responsible for atrocities have gone into hiding. So whether or not there would be some kind of accountability also needs to be there as well. So there's definitely a lot of questions that needs answering. So before we read into it, guys, I think this 5-minute video here from Al Jazeera, I think is a very, very good one here, just to kind of give us a bit more of an insight of what's actually going on. Because if any, Al Jazeera are one of the more reliable news outlets out there. As I say, they're not perfect. So certainly, everyone has their flaws, but I think they're one of the more reliable ones. And I think this is a very interesting piece here.
Well, Syria's new administration has appointed Prime Minister Mohammed al-Bashir. He will be tasked with forming a transitional government. On Monday, he met with the former Prime Minister and the leader of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham to discuss the transfer of power. Al-Bashir faces the challenge now of uniting a country that has been at war for more than a decade. Let's find a little bit more about Syria's new Prime Minister. Mohammed al-Bashir was born in the northern Syrian city of Idlib in 1983. He went on to earn a degree in electrical engineering from the University of Aleppo in 2007. Al-Bashir has connections to Russia, previously working as a department head for a Russian gas company.
You didn't think that Russia wouldn't have something somewhere, some connection here. Now, so this right here tells me that he will be very keen. Russia will be very keen. I don't know if what influence Russia has on him, vice versa. Because obviously one of the things that people were saying a lot is that what's going to happen to the two Russian bases. Well, there might be more than two Russian bases, but the Russian bases that are based in Syria. What is going to happen to them? Because the last reports that I saw is that they were withdrawing from them. I don't know if that's still the case, because obviously Russia at the moment are desperately trying to push right now in Ukraine to as much as they possibly can, because they believe there's going to be some kind of ceasefire or peace negotiations coming at some sort there. But I do wonder if this means that Russia will still have an influence in Syria going forward. I imagine they will. I just wonder how much of Western influence is going to be can be imposed on Syria as well.
Most recently, he served as development minister for the so-called Syrian Salvation Government, the administration formed by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham in Syria's northwest. Well, for more on this, we're joined now by Osama bin Javed, who is in Idlib in northwestern Syria. Osama, what reaction has there been, first of all, to him being promoted to Prime Minister there?
Well, I think a sigh of relief, especially here in northwestern Syria, because these are faces and people that people here know. This is the ground zero of the Salvation Government, the government which essentially was set up by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, the group which has now taken in a blitzkrieg of all of Syria. And this is the place where they practice their governance skills. This is the place where Mohammed al-Bashir was a development minister. This is the place where they were raising taxes. They were running government services. They were providing basics to the people. And they have earned the trust of the people here. Because remember, this is a challenge for a fighting group to become a governing body and then earn the trust of the people. And by and large, we've been moving across the northern western parts of Syria, especially in Idlib, multiple cities here, and in the town center of Idlib city. Things seem to be running normal. There is a trash that is being collected. There's traffic police manning the sites. There is also a number of basic services that are open. So life seems to be going on as normal. And people here have been telling us this has been the case since the Salvation Government took over, since HTS consolidated all of these groups into its fold and became a united front to provide people with the basics. So
that's very interesting. They basically everything seems to be at the moment appears to be everything is smooth, everything is calm. There's not seems to be an ignition has gone off yet. That could still happen. It's possible it could still happen, but at the moment things seem to be business as usual, jobs to be done, money to be made, all that kind of stuff. But as time will go on, obviously, is how well is this government going to do? It's very relieving to hear that all the groups were involved have been put into this to be put on board with this, because if you leave any one of these groups out, then it just leaves for more conflict. Yeah, whereas you bring them all on board, there's a chance. It's a small chance. I still call it a small chance, but there's a chance that you could actually bring stability and perhaps some kind of democracy of some sorts to Syria, something that some of these people have never experienced in their entire lifetime.
Here in Idlib, this is a slice of life, a microcosm of what Syria could look like under Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, and this is what the group is going to be advertising. And in terms of challenges, there is a long list of them. There is obviously the internal divisions. Again, this is a very diverse country with vested interests, with international powers at play. And then there are external threats. You have to realize that Israel has carried out, according to one monitor, hundreds of strikes here in Syria. So territorial integrity, as we've heard from Syria's neighbors, is key. And
yeah, that's one thing that, so since the regime has fallen, Israel have taken advantage of the situation. It's like, oh, well, let's take some land, because they're not going to stop us. They're not going to stop us. And that's the thing. Like, nothing's stopping them right now. And whether or not someone's going to come out and basically say, hey, give that land back, is anyone going to make Israel do that? It's not like anyone's made Israel do anything at the moment. The last what's been happening since that October 7th attack. Like, is anyone going to stop Israel? Is anyone going to make them? You know, America seems, you know, I haven't heard Biden actually say that, you know, securing those Golan Heights, which, by the way, do not belong to Israel, but they've taken additional land to claim as a buffer zone. Like, yeah.
And that is going to be the challenge for Mohammed al-Bashir, both internally and outside of the country, to consolidate everyone under one umbrella, which is acceptable to all Syrians from all walks of life, from all shades of ethnicities and religions, and bring them united under a front which provides basic services, as we've mentioned here, that have been working in Idlib.
Osama, obviously, like you say, people are worried if the country can actually be united with so many divisions going back so long. Is there also a sense of people wanting justice and accountability for everything that happened under the Assad regime?
Well, unfortunately, Assad will not face justice unless something happens unless he gets, you know, kicked out of Russia, which is very unlikely. But as I said, it's the people who worked under him. You know, how many of those people will be apprehended? How many of those soldiers who worked in the prisons, who worked for him, who did the torture, who did the horrible things to people? How many of them will be apprehended and face justice? That's a good question. And I think that kind of justice is very much needed. Of course, they want the man himself, but they can't get the man. But perhaps they can find and get the people responsible around him, those who followed his orders without questions and did some of the most horrible and disgusting things. Perhaps then it may provide some justice for those people. And I don't think anyone should be I don't want people being dragged out of their homes or whatever, those who were responsible, and basically getting the death squad, firing squad or something. But at the same time, it's like, because you want them to face proper justice, like in a criminal court and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not sure I'm not sure if these people would understand that. I think they would more happily, you know, give the same back to them. I'm not sure. Again, we're seeing this from an outside perspective, obviously. But they will want some kind of accountability. If this transitional government can give that, it will also help as well. It will help them in their progress to having some kind of stabilization here.
Absolutely. So this is going to be key, because if this country is to move forward in the direction of unity, then obviously there is going to make some sort of compromises, especially those who would naturally want to see revenge, because there have been horror story after horror story that we've been hearing from people, not just from Sidnaya prison, from what has been happening to people who were abducted, who were tortured, who were killed, whose houses were bombed, people who were forced to flee. Remember, in the last few years, we've seen those green buses taking people, ethnically cleansing them from one area to other, and a lot of them came here to northwestern Syria, to Idlib as well. Then there is the large number of people who are living outside of Syria. Just in neighboring Turkey, there's more than 3 million of them. So there's obviously a natural feeling of seeking some sort of justice from the people who inflicted all of this on them, and it'll be the responsibility of the government to make sure that if there is justice which is meted out, it's meted out in a fashion which is under a rule of law and does not become vigilante justice on the streets of Syria.
Thank you so much.
Let's hope so. That's one thing many people are predicting will happen, but let us hope that does not turn out to be the case and that actually a transitional government comes in. I'm not holding my breath too much here for a democratic one of some sorts, because they don't know, with the greatest respect to Syrians out there, they don't know what that is. They've only seen it from the outside. So I don't know if that's going to be the case. It will be obviously, as time goes on, it will be fascinating, and I do use the term fascinating to see how the country develops. We will be keeping an eye on it very closely, guys. Jao, good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. Hopefully families can be reunited. Yeah, some families have been reunited, Avery Lamb. Good to see you there. I hope you're doing well. It's good to hear that some families that have been reunited, obviously been let out of prison. Those who were basically locked up for a long time simply because of political opponents, tortured and everything. Simply because they were against the regime. And, it should have happened at 2015. This should have happened in 2015. The only reason it didn't is because Russia saved Bashar and allowed things to drag on longer than it needed to. It should have happened then, and it didn't. And Russia practically saved him and kept things as the status quo, and people endured for another 9 years, another 9 unnecessary years of this. So yeah, good to see you there, Mad Monk, as well. So let's read a bit into this as well. So Syrian opposition forces are in talks to take formal control of the country after a sweeping offensive that captured swathes of territories including Damascus and ousted longtime President Bashar al-Assad. The opposition leader Ahmed al-Shahir, also known as Abdul Mohammed, I'm going to mispronounce names, guys, so I do apologize, met the outgoing Prime Minister Mohammed al-Jihadi on Monday to discuss the transition. Al-Jihadi, who served under al-Assad, has agreed to transfer power to Harid Tawad al-Hashim's Syrian Salvation Government, SSG. We are working to ensure the transitional period is quick and smooth, al-Jihadi was quoted as saying. The transitional government is to be formed by Mohammed al-Bashir, who is close to the HTS, the group that led the Damascus takeover and heads their Idlib base SSG. Geir Pedersen, United Nations Special Envoy to Syria, called for a transition process to ensure that the continuation of Syria's institutions and allows its people to chart the path to meet their legitimate aspirations and restore a unified Syria. We hope so anyway. Once formed, the new government is likely to prioritise consolidating control over newly gained territories, reshaping government institutions, and reprimanding Syrians exiled and the displaced. Stephen Zooms, a professor at politics at the University of San Francisco, had told Al Jazeera. The rapid advance of HTS-led opposition forces marks a generational turning point in the country's 13-year Syria civil war. The conflict had claimed hundreds of thousands of lives, caused one of the largest refugee crises in modern history, reduced cities to rubble, and triggered global sanctions that devastated the economy. One thing that is definitely going, you've already heard it from some Syrians out there across different parts of the world. Many Syrians will be flying home. Many Syrians who fled Syria because of the regime will be flying home, regardless of whatever outcome this is going to be, because many people want to go home. So you could see an influx of Syrians pouring back into the country, now that there is that at the moment there seems to appear to be peace and stability here. Good morning, Steve McMahon. While clinging to power, al-Assad faced accusations from right groups of brutal crackdowns, including killings, tortures, and forced disappearances, as well as using chemical weapons against Syria's population. People are wondered what a new order will look like. Al Jazeera's Russell Ruskar, reporting from Damascus, adding that a fragmented opposition could ignite intense political jokering. security is one of the main concerns. An onslaught of Israeli attacks have had hampered the country's military sites over the past 2 days, and it's creating a huge challenge for them, he added. In charting a new course, HCS, a former al-Qaeda affiliate, has sought to moderate his hardline views, offering amnesty for soldiers conscripted under al-Assad's regime and pledge protection for religious minorities. See, there's a part of me is like, if you know that some of those soldiers who were responsible for some of the damage and whatnot, who may have done some of the brutal things that they did, could give them a free pass, amnesty. That's I guess as much as it pains me, I guess it's understandable, because obviously you need to ensure the military's you need to have the military on your side. You need to get the military on the side, because obviously at the end of the day they're there to follow whatever government has been. They've had the same family in power for a long time, and understandably they will want their assurances there. However, the new leadership has assured to seek just retribution for senior military and security officials that has been implicated in war crimes. We will not hesitate to hold accountable the criminals, murderers, security and army officers involved in torturing Syrian people, al-Hashar said, offering rewards information on those responsible for abusers. Okay, so obviously those who are actually, so he says army officers, so those who made the direct calls to make the orders in the first place. Yeah, this absolutely 100%, though I couldn't agree more after everything they've been through. This is a historic new beginning for the Syrian people who have suffered unspeakable violence and atrocities over the past 14 years, said the UN Commission of Inquiry on Syria. It is incumbent on those now in charge to ensure that such atrocities are never repeated again. The most important step is justice, not just retribution, said Ains Kalmad, head of the rights armed group Amnesty International. Yeah. We say justice, but I think for them it's vengeance for a lot of them, because a lot of them have gone through a huge amount of suffering for quite a long time, and there is finally some calm, some peace, which has been long overdue for its people. But I think we'll have to see. Like I said, time will tell. I'm going to follow this as closely as I possibly can. I may even do like an additional live stream or premiere special or something to get some more context on this, because I do think it's really important for us to try and get more understanding of this. I really just hope it turns out well. And I think that's the most important thing there. Good evening, Livestream. What's happening, troops? It's minus 3 degrees in Ayrshire, Scotland tonight. Well, I hope you're nice and warm there. That's for sure. Keep yourself nice and warm wherever you are. It is, it's not as chilly as it is down here in London. Not as chilly as it is here in London, but I did go for a walk today. Not for a good long walk, but it's chilly, but today was the first day I did a proper walk. So not as long as I normally do, but I might do a longer one tomorrow. But it's definitely temperatures are chilly. Yeah, keep warm, guys. Keep warm. The next story I've got for you guys is one from CNN. I don't know if this is going to make a difference or not. Good to see you there, Georgie Purcell, as well. Hope you're doing well. No winners. China Xi warns US against a trade war. Do you think Donald Trump is going to listen? Not really. And he's right. Just before we even read into it, he's absolutely right. No one benefits this. Like, I understand that China, obviously, they are taking, they have their hands in so many pockets across the world. They really do. How many things do you have literally in your home or around you that is made in China? Like, China has so much influence in our lives, and we bear, I don't mean like in terms of from a political point of view. I mean from a productivity point of view, because we have so many things whether it's clothes, whether it's technology, devices. You know, they are everywhere. China, they've been everywhere for a long, long time. And while you might, you know, some Americans might think that this trade war, this tariffs on China is going to make America great again, or, you know, push China down and make American products and American works and jobs and lives cheaper. It's not going to do that. It's not. And all you're going to do is make things worse in the global markets. The global markets suffered actually last time when Trump was in power. And the global markets may suffer again. Now, some people have said that those in capitalism, in big business, may be able to persuade Trump not to do some of the things that he's going to do. We'll have to wait and see. But, you know, does he, like, he may listen to other billionaires and whatnot who say to him, you know what, you're actually hurting us in theory by doing this. But some of them might not even care because they have lots of money, don't they? So China's leader Xi Jinping has warned the United States against restarting a trade war, saying there would be no winners, even as he vowed to defend the country's economic interests. Xi made the remarks today on Tuesday during a meeting with the heads of several global financial institutions, including the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, a day after Chinese regulators announced an antitrust investigation into the American chip maker Nvidia. Yeah, I haven't read into this story, but this is very interesting, this story. The probe is widely seen as a major escalation in the growing battle for AI dominance, which both Washington and Beijing believes is critical to safeguard national security even before Donald Trump returns to the White House. Yeah, artificial intelligence is going to be a great problem, a big problem. Like, in one way, it's going to be helpful. In another way, it's just going to take over people's jobs. Tariff wars, trade wars, and technology wars go against the historical trends and economic laws, and there will be no winners, Xi said, according to state broadcaster CCTV. Building small country yards with high walls and decoupling and breaking chains will hurt others, but not benefit oneself. China has always believed that when China is good, then can the world be good? Only when the world is good and China be better, he added. The UN National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, has used the small yard and high fence phrase to describe a strategy for allowing most trade with China to progress normally while placing restrictions on some goods, particularly high-tech products like semiconductors deemed to have military applications. Last week, the Biden administration announced a third round of export curbs in as many years, restricting Beijing's access to 24 types of semiconductors making equipment and advanced memory chips, as well as placing controls on more than 100 Chinese companies. Trump said last month that China will face higher tariffs on its goods by 10% above any existing tariffs until it prevents the flow of illegal drugs into the US. This is... Like, I'm just gonna say this here. I think Mexico might be more, might be talking to Mexico might be a bigger issue when it comes to drugs rather than China. In an interview that aired Sunday on NBC, I saw this interview. The incoming president said he and Xi had been communicating with each other a few days previously. We asked about discussion at a regular briefing on Monday. Spokesperson for China's foreign ministry did not directly confirm or deny it. On the interview, it's just like Trump was just being himself pretty much. Like, there was nothing there. He didn't give anything away. He still said he had concepts of a plan when it came to the healthcare plan that he has for getting rid of Obamacare. It's just like, so what? You're going to get rid of Obamacare and then what? Not give him anything? It's not good for Americans. China is relying on exports, particularly to major trading partners like the US, as a key engine of growth on domestic demand slumps because of a number of economic problems. On Tuesday, official data shows that exports fell sharply and imports unexpectedly shrank last month. The Nvidia case deal has happened 3 or 4 years ago. So it's been going on for a while, but no one's just talked about it. Then Q is that I'm assuming then QA. Thanks for that. Exports grew by just 6.7% in November. It was noticeably weaker than the 8.5% forecast by a group of economics polled by Reuters, and much lower than the increase of 12.7% in October. We doubt this marks an end to China's recent export boom. Xi Hung of Capital Economics wrote in a research note, although US tariffs could reduce export volumes by around 3%, may not be felt until the middle of next year. In the meantime, the threat of tariffs may even spark exports as US firms ramp up orders in anticipation. The need to prepare for external shocks was cited in Monday's readout of a meeting by the Communist Party's powerful Politburo, which made the headlines by announcing it would adopt a moderately loose monetary policy next year. Economics said the wording meant monetary policy, which involves influencing interest rates, which were relaxed for the first time since 2010. It is likely China will continue to improve trade relations through lower export tax rebates and clearer rules, including in government procurement, City Economics had wrote on Monday. So, obviously, economics is not my thing, as you guys know. Joe Lefty, good to see you there. Hope you're doing well. But obviously, I think just China just saying like you don't have to do this. Like you're not going to help anyone with this idea. You know, these tariffs. China will fight back if they will fire back if make no mistake about it. If China don't need to say that they're not going to fight back if Trump makes things worse. He will. They will fight back. One we'll keep an eye on as always, guys. But I think once Trump comes in, it's what's going to happen on that first day. What day is that? The 20th, I think it is. I believe it's the 20th is the inauguration day when he officially takes power. The clock is ticking on Biden to get stuff done. So the next one I got for you guys, moving away from America and China, all the way to Georgia. This is a piece from the New York Times, guys. So in Georgia, protests echoes of Ukraine's past revolutions. So this former Soviet republic has been rocked by anti-government demonstrations over the same issue that hurled Ukraine into war, its relationship with Europe and Russia. Yep, I think that's just such a great way of putting it. Like, it really is. Like, it's a tug of war between Russia and Europe. The majority of the people want Europe, but Russia are trying everything to stop them going down that path, and it's just like, unless they annex the country. I mean, I don't think they will, but Russia do not want another EU neighbour on their door because since Finland obviously joining NATO, being on their doorstep as well. You had Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, obviously all part of NATO. You have obviously a situation with you have Poland obviously as well on the border there. Could you just imagine Georgia joining the EU and then somehow joining NATO? Could you imagine that? I don't think it would happen, the NATO thing, but my God, these people they see what's happening in the EU. They see what the European Union has done. They've seen that people's lives have been better off. And they just don't want they want a relationship with Russia because they have family, they have friends, they have connections with Russia. Okay? That's always been there. That's not, they don't want that changed. They don't want that literally taken away from them. What they don't want is Russia telling them what they can and can't do with their lives, with their country, with their people, with their citizens. They want to be able to just look, we that's what they want. They want choice. They want to be able to choose what they want to do. And they're not being allowed that choice because Russia does not want them to have that choice. It's about them having the right to be able to decide what to do with their own futures, and they're not being allowed that. And instead of allowing them to choose their own futures, they're trying to sabotage it. And that's what it seems to be. So on the streets of Georgia, it's starting to look a little like the Ukraine of 10 years ago, before the war, when tensions with Russia started brewing. And increasingly a authoritarianism government in a former Soviet republic calls to the European Union and drifts closer to Moscow. Enormous protests erupt, calling for the government's ouster. Riot police respond. Young demonstrators are beaten up and dragged away. Each side digs in, raising the spectre of a major crisis in a country that has long struggled to break away from Russian dominance. on the country's far eastern edge, embracing the European Union can be a risky move, threatens vested interests, especially those of Russia, which is wary to lose any of its regional influence. These tensions have been playing out to different degrees in recent years in Georgia, Moldova, and in the most recent example, Ukraine. All three are former Soviet republics, and Russian troops occupy different slices of each. Yeah. Luckily, Moldova's election did not. While it did have potential. Russia did try to influence certain factors of it. It still went pretty well for them there, Moldova. But we know there's still a part of Moldova that's problematic, that is for sure. Georgians vote sharp, they are stubborn. And they want the Stalin fetish MAGA crowd out. Yeah, that's a MAGA crowd. It's definitely a good way of putting it. That is for sure. Oh, thanks, Livshin. Yes, I got this. It's about a couple of years ago now that I got it. Yeah, it's quite an old jumper. It wasn't made. It was one I got myself. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you. I've only got two Christmas jumpers. I might get a third one before the Snowflake show next week, guys. But back to more serious stuff here. Yeah, it's. Yeah, a lot. Russia. Yeah, Putin can't stand this. He can't stand that these people want to decide their own futures. He can't stand it that Georgia want to break away. He that want to, make their own destinations themselves. He can't stand that Ukraine. The situation with Ukraine. He can't stand all of this, and he can't stand the fact that he hates what's happened with the Balkan, not Balkan, with Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. He hates that. If he could, if they weren't a part of NATO, he would have taken them. He would have taken them. He wants it all back. He wants to reform the USSR. He wants to go back. And the problem is that we can't go back. We can only go forward. In Georgia, what concerns people here and beyond are the unmistakable echoes of Ukraine's popular revolution in 2014 that succeeded in pulling the country away from Moscow, but ultimately resulted in a devastating war. Governments trying to turn the country back to the Russian sphere of influence against the will of the people, who were moving towards arrest, which felt almost inevitable, said Christina Floria, a historian at Cornell University who specializes in Eastern Europe. It's so creepingly similar to what happened in Ukraine, she said, and it's so worrying. Yeah, it's the more I think about it, the more of deja vu is starting to come to mind when I think about this. But like, if a ceasefire is secured, it will not be like Ukraine, and it will not be if they overturn this government, right? If the Dream Party gets overturned, right? Let's say the people win, they get this government to submit and they get a clean election and whatnot, or they overthrow them, right? Let's just say hypothetically they did. And Russia gets a ceasefire, some sort of peace deal, whatever, with Ukraine, right? There is nothing. No one is going to come to save Georgia. Yeah, they will stomp into this country and take control again. They may even annex Georgia, like Putin, like out of sheer anger and frustration, just to it may go like, because the thing is like, even if everyone kicked and screamed, no one's gonna stop Russia doing that, because Georgia's geography position in the globe. Like, I don't see anyone doing anything about it apart from imposing more sanctions on Russia. Like, I know they're crippled already, because they are quite crippled from the Ukraine war, but I can see them doing that. I can see them going after Georgia. I can see them doing it if they go down that same path. Ever since the ruling party announced in late November it was postponing its efforts to join the European Union, thousands of outraged pro-European Georgians have poured into the streets of Tispili, the capital, provoking a brutal response. Laksir Malakiskan, a 20-year-old computer science student, said men in unarmed black uniforms snatched him from a recent protest, dragged him into a van, pummeled his face, broke his nose, and threatened to rape him. He shared medical records and video footage corroborating much of his account. Still, in an interview speaking through a mask of medical tape, he said he wasn't discouraged and found that the Ukraine parallels inspiring. Ukraine is where we see people fighting for their dignity, dedicating their lives to the highest of high concepts that anybody can imagine, he said. Yes, there is a risk to standing up to Russia, he went on, but it's better to die fighting to die with dignity than to live a miserable, unworthy, unholy life. Major powers have often succeeded in conflicts in this region. The United States and its European allies have also tried to sway events in Georgia, supporting non-profit organizations and segments of the population striving to bring the country closer to the West, at times rattling Georgia's government. Latest clashes have widened that divide, and on Monday, Britain announced it will reduce its support to the Georgian government, citing shocking scenes of violence towards protesters and journalists. The United States have been equally critical, accusing the ruling party of anti-democratic actions and suspending what has been a long-standing US-Georgia strategic partnership. Tucked between Russia and Turkey in the rugged Caucasus region, Georgia has for centuries been served as a vital corridor between east and west, but more and more it's looking west. A recent survey showed that 82% of the country, which has a population of 3.7 million, want to become part of the European Union. The goal of joining the EU as well as NATO is even enshrined in Georgia's constitution. Protests started last year when the government began making moves that seemed to push Georgia further from this. First, it backed a measure that mirrored a Russia law that went after human rights groups and non-profits that receive Western funding. Next, it adopted a measure that severely curtailed gay rights. European officials denounced both and warned that they would imperil Georgia's chances of entering their club. The capital in crisis. Then in late November, the ruling party, the Georgian Dream, made a stunning announcement. It was suspending for 4 years the formal process of joining the European Union. The news landed a gut punch to many Georgians, especially the young who dreamed of moving freely across those borders and landing good jobs. For years, officials have passed all kinds of EU-friendly reforms, and Georgian business leaders have been angling for a bonanza in trade. But now opposition leaders say the government has ditched this, what they call the Russian blueprint. Government officials push back, saying it's wrong to label them anti-West or pro-Russia. Opposition is very clear. We want to survive as a country, said Levigan, a member of parliament and one of the ruling party's foreign policy leaders. Unfortunately, you don't choose neighbours, he said, and we have essential security threats from Russia on a daily basis. Their solution, he said, was a pragmatic foreign policy that continues to move towards Europe, but cautiously so as to not antagonize Russia. Many of the requests European officials have made, he said, could have provoked a confrontation with Russia and have been hugely detrimental to Georgians. He cited the West's economic sanctions on Russia as an example. Georgia initially joined them, but stopped after it became clear that cutting off trade with Russia would hurt the Georgian economy, while barely laying a glove on Russia. You have to remember, they can't touch Russia. They're scared of them. They're literally on their door with them. They don't have the same... Georgia doesn't have the same guards. But the thing is, if they were a part of NATO, if they were a part of the EU, Russia wouldn't touch them. Russia would not touch them. Because they know what happens. Because if they take on one member of NATO, they take on all members of NATO. You know, look at, like I said, I've mentioned them before. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. Look at those countries. You know, those countries are so much happier because they know they have that security. They have that security. And that's what Georgian people want. They just want that assurances. More absurd, he said, was a Ukrainian request that Georgia allow easy passage for volunteer fighters to travel to Ukraine. Such a move, he said, could have set off military escalation with Russia. Again, the frightening of them. Georgia occupies about 20% of Georgia, stemming from a short, intense war back in 2008. Yeah, they took some land from them, and Georgia, they're not going to do anything about it. Georgian Queen claims a mandate for making policy, having won elections this October, but many Georgians believe they were rigged, and election observers have raised concerns about pressure and intimidation. During the election, Georgian Dream candidates said that if Georgians didn't want their country to plunge into war, they better vote for the party's pragmatic approach. The party even put up billboards contrasting Ukraine's destruction with images of shiny buildings in Georgia, labelling the destruction side with little numbers that correspond to the number of ballots assigned to the opposition parties. Opposition figures say Bazivia Askarisky, the billionaire founder of the Georgian Dream Party, who is widely viewed as a puppeteer controlling Georgia's politics, is steering the country away from the West. He made his fortune in Russia and they say still has deep ties to the country. You do not make your fortune in Russia, return to the country and expect people to believe that you are still seeking the interests of the Georgian people. Yeah, I'm not buying that. They point the way to the government has cracked down, arresting opposition leaders, hurling away hundreds of protesters and beating people up. There's more evidence of the Russian blueprint. A lot of violence has been captured on video. The security officers kicking a young man in the face after he was already on the ground. Another episode involved an attack on Grumly Ruska, a seasoned TV presenter. Video footage shows him standing in front of Parliament building, microphone in hand, broadcasting live, when a security officer runs furiously at him and slangs him in the back of the head. On what reason was that? The blow cracked his severe vertebrae, medical reports show. He crashed to the ground, blood gushing from his face. If I were doing something wrong, then why didn't that man detain me? Mr. Roroku, wearing a neck brace aside, asked from his kitchen. He hit me and ran away. The riot police weren't behaving like cops, he said. They were, but like criminals. Who exactly were has become a big question. Mr. Rodriguez and others said they have suspected that the government have hired private security guards and people from outside Tisbury to help squash the protests. Hiring mercenaries to do the job rather than the actual people. Yeah, Jesus. When asked about this and police brutality, Georgia's Ministry of Interior declined to comment. We can't comment on it. Georgia is of course different from Ukraine. It's not Slavic. It wasn't as central to Soviet industry or agriculture, and it's not physically as close to Western Europe. Conflict here doesn't ring alarm bells the same way Ukraine has in Poland, the Baltics, and other EU members. Still, it is a frontline state and quite complicated. The countries in this region are so deeply enmeshed with Russia. It's different to break off ties, said Mrs. Filola, the Eastern European scholar. Therein lies the problem. Many Georgians worry it's not just about the political shift, but the cultural one as well. David, an artist, said that what concerns him the most is the anti-gay law that went into effect this past week. It bans same-sex marriage and criminalizes the sharing of information that promotes same-sex relationships. Now, what benefit is this? Like, who is this benefiting? Like, this is just pure discrimination. Mr. Avsky is gay. If I come out of the streets and say to my neighbour, "Hi, I'm David, I'm gay," will I go to jail? He asked. I don't know if I can stay here. He said, but I love this country. I don't know where else I would go. Every night he walks to the protests, which are held after people get off work. He circulates among friends. He warms his hands on bonfires and joins in the down with the government chants. Tens of thousands of people stand alongside him, with many wrapped in flags, Georgian, the European Union, even a few Ukrainian. The atmosphere resembles a giant block party, at least until the police move in. Yeah, I've seen that picture before. Just standing there in defiance while the massive private police force there. Will they do it? Can they do it? I don't know. I just don't know. Like, they're gonna have to be more violent. If these people generally want to topple, they may have to turn violent. They may have to get more violent, or the government will turn more violent. Because at the moment, this is not. They got like. There's two sides of this, guys. This is the thing, right? So there's a part of me that is like, where I could totally stand with the protesters, because they believe their election was taken from them, right? And they generally believe that, and they believe there's sufficient evidence for that. And obviously the laws that have been implemented by this government have been pulling them away from Europe, away from what the people generally want, who that is want closer ties with Europe, closer ties with the European Union. And this government intends on doing that, right? There is this other side of me, based on what we've just read. That crosses my mind as well. Despite some of the things that they are putting in, like I said, there is always that possibility that Russia may annex Georgia. They have the army. They have the army. Despite everything that's happening with Russia, yeah, they know. Georgia knows that Russia can take their land whenever they wanted to, and no one's going to save them. They know that, and that this could, in theory, it's not. I don't think this is the case, but a theory could be. I'm making a theory here, guys. But a theory could be the case of that the Georgian Dream Party are bringing them closer to Russia in order that Russia doesn't annex them, or does something that they may do to them in the future, which they may or may not do. That's a part of where I'm seeing it. But even if let's just say hypothetically, like, there's nothing to stop Russia doing whatever they wanted to anyway. It's only when it reaches the point of joining the European Union and joining NATO that they will finally be able to stop worrying about their futures. That they will have security guarantees. They will have peace. They can finally have peace. They can be able to live their lives and have the same opportunities that EU citizens have. They want to have those opportunities. I don't know if the young people will do it. It's going to be a very long battle. But time will tell, guys. Time will tell. Moldova is next on the list, depending on what happened in Ukraine. Yeah, we'll keep an eye closely on Moldova, that's for sure. All this violence, all the Georgian government will do is just one thing, create an even more violent response from the opposition. Yeah, well, their decision to just, like, the moment they triggered it, the moment when they said we're not talking to the EU, we're not having any more talks with them for another 4 years, and it's just like, right, we're not having this. You know, that was appears to be the straw that broke the camel's back to the opposition. The electoral college system in the US is hardly democratic. American elections are usually won by candidates who lose the popular vote. Yeah, I know it's not a fair election. No, I know. These elections in the US are just another episode in play. USA accusing anyone of being undemocratic is a bit rich. That is true, Steve. That is true. Another colour coupe. Thanks, USA. I don't think we can blame America for what's happening here in Georgia. If I'm honest. All right, guys, we're going to take a little break. Oh, I just realised the time. Oh, God. I've got a little funny video for you guys to kind of break the ice a little bit, because we've been going we've already gone almost just over an hour. But yeah, I do promise we will stop before 8:30 when Max goes live with his live stream. I'm assuming he's going live tonight anyway. So we've got a couple more stories to cover here, but I hope you guys enjoy this little funny video from Broken News. It's a classic one, guys. Some of you guys may be aware of this one, but I hope you get a good laugh out of it nonetheless.
Welcome to Broken News. New research has shown that men who drive large SUVs or enormous American pickup trucks have massive throbbing cocks. Scientists have been studying what's known as the wank panzer effect. Our reporter has more.
For years, men who pootle around residential areas in massive four-wheel drives have been accused of compensating for something. But researchers say there's strong evidence that each one of these men has impressively large, veiny and perpetually tumescent wangs. It had been previously thought that those who owned unnecessarily large vehicles had sad grey button knobs like little cashew nuts, with miniature, brown, empty, crinkly walnut ball bags. But there is, according to this report, a direct and linear correlation between the size of the vehicle being driven and the size of the driver's glistening, hefty and leaden meat obelisk. The report authors say that whether the vehicles are being used as intended in difficult off-road conditions or being used to crawl at 7 miles an hour down the B6157 at rush hour, you can be sure the driver has a hulking single-barrel pump-action yoghurt rifle with monumentally capacious bollocks. The findings claim that if a chap doesn't drive an oversized vehicle with enough torque to pull a house down, he may well have a twig and berries that barely registers on the quantum scale, laughably small apple pit balls and an almost indistinguishable Lilliputian micropenis or nano-nubbin. But a fella popping to Lidl for a £3 bottle of wine in a Ford F-150 Raptor with 700 horsepower will likely be the proud owner of a bulky beef trunk and 4 sonorous balls positively gurgling with fizzy man fat. Back to you.
Bob, thank you. Well, in a statement just in, the people behind this study said, "Our report has now proven that a male driving around a town centre in anything other than a vehicle designed for tactical deployment on the battlefield will statistically have a dick like a baby's winky on a cold day. But males using a 4.4-litre twin-turbo V8 Range Rover Sport to travel less than half a mile to do the school run will have a flabberjacker with at least 150% larger lob than average and be in the 95th percentile or above on the throbidity scale." What a lovely story. That's all from Broken News. You're up to date.
I've just ruined some people's dinners there, haven't I? I didn't really think about that, did I, for the timing of this? I do apologise if I've ruined someone's dinners there. But yes, men with their large cars. I know, those typical men. Typical men. Absolutely terrible. Yeah, it's an old one from Broken News. Always thinking about their men with large cars. I know, ridiculous. Guys, just before I go to the next article, if you haven't already, please hit the like button. We'd greatly appreciate it. Share this across social media so others are notified of this live stream. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing as well. Help me get to 2,000 subscribers if we can before the end of the year. It's very unlikely, but if you haven't subscribed and you do find the content informative, helpful to you, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It really does help. If you want to go one step further and financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by leaving a super chat down below. Guarantee your message will be read out if you do leave one. And always, you can always join the YouTube membership for as little as 99p. Gets you access to custom emojis, access to members community posts as well. And if you advance the $1.99 membership, you get early access to additional content which is already available to those members already. So thank you to anyone who has supported me, whether it's financially or non-financially way. I really do appreciate it. So thanks, guys. And if you wanted to as well, you can always buy me a coffee, join and join on the Patreon as well. Patreon, there's additional content on there as well if you want to check that out as well, guys. So the next story I've got for you is Israel and its Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So Netanyahu vows to challenge absurd corruption charges as he takes the stand in his trial. So he's taken the stand for a case against him in Israel, and this has been coming for a while. But considering it's in his country and not the bigger crimes that he's got faced against him, you know, somehow I just think he's not gonna. I don't know if he's gonna be found guilty. I think somehow he's gonna weasel his way out of this. But the fact that this is happening while the country is literally at war. It's bonkers that this man is still in power, despite everything that's going on. It's just, yeah, it's insane. So just for a bit of context, I'll read a bit into it. So the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu promised defiantly on Tuesday to knock down corruption allegations against him as he began testifying in his long-running trial, becoming the first sitting Israeli leader to take the stand as a criminal defendant. The testimony is another low point for Israel's longest-serving leader, who also faces an international arrest warrant for alleged war crimes in Israel's war in Gaza. In his opening testimony in a packed Tel Aviv courtroom, Netanyahu argued that he was a dedicated leader and a defender of Israel's interests, swatting away the charges against him as a drop in the sea compared to the challenges he has faced protecting his country. I'll let you guys be the judge of that. But the charges have torn open divisions in Israel and complicated Netanyahu's legacy, which has also been tainted by the war in Gaza and the growing international isolation Israel faces because of it. Yeah, and this is the thing. Like, they are not acknowledging. I wonder if he ever does get kicked, you know, would whatever future government or prime minister would they start adhering to what the international bodies are saying, or would they just continue to just do whatever they want without any repercussions? I do wonder that. Speaking freely and appearing at ease, Netanyahu said he could balance appearing at each trial with his duties as a prime minister at a time when Israel is still fighting a war in Gaza and contending with the fall of Bashar Assad in neighbouring Syria. Yeah, all this at the same while he's in this case. It's ridiculous. The guy should not be anyway. The guy should have been taken off power. You know, he's literally holding everything together. You know. I've waited 8 years for this moment to say the truth, Netanyahu said, standing at a podium with his son Avia and several members of his Likud party seated on the courtroom benches. He said his testimony would poke holes in his absurd accusations. Netanyahu will answer during his court appearances to charges of fraud, breaches of trust and accepting briberies in 3 separate cases. He is accused of accepting tens of thousands of dollars worth of cigars and champagne from a billionaire Hollywood producer in exchange for assistance with personal and business interests. He is also accused of promoting adventurous regulations for media mongols in exchange for favourable coverage of himself and his family. Netanyahu, 75 years old, denies wrongdoing and said the charges are a witch hunt orchestrated by a hostile media and a biased legal system out to topple his lengthy rule. His testimony caps years of scandals that have swirled around him and his family, who have gained a reputation as enjoying a lavish lifestyle at the taxpayers' expense. Netanyahu's testimony is taking place in an underground fortified courtroom for security reasons. Outside the courthouse, dozens of protesters gathered, both supporters of Netanyahu and his opponent. A banner draped outside read "Crime Minister," as each chanted slogans. Some families of hostage held in Gaza also demonstrated. At the start of his testimony, a judge told Netanyahu he had the same privileges as other witnesses, could sit or stand as he chose. Netanyahu told his version of events and shared personal details about his life that he might hope would shape the judge's perception of him. He said at the start of his career in public service, he would lose sleep over media coverage, but learned that he had no meaningful bearing, in contrast to the prosecution's attempts to paint him as an image obsessed. As he smoked cigars, he could hardly finish them because of his workload and hated champagne. Ahead of his testimony start, Netanyahu's lawyer, Amit Hadid, accused the Israeli justice system of making up the charges in an attempt to ensnare Netanyahu. There was a huge effort to find a few pieces of a puzzle that don't connect to each other, Hadid said. As Netanyahu sat on the bench behind him, in court in the light of day, we could see everything falls apart. The testimony sector takes place at 6 hours a day, 3 days a week for several weeks. Will take up a significant chunk of Netanyahu's working hours, prompting critics to ask if he can capably manage a country embroiled in a war on one front, containing the fallout from a second, and keeping tabs on other potential regional threats, including from Iran. His lawyer asked if he could be allowed to receive notes while testifying to help ensure he would continue running the country. And at some points during the trial, Netanyahu did. Under Israeli law, indicted prime ministers are not required to step down, but the charges against Netanyahu cleaved deep divisions in Israel, with protesters demanding his resignation and former political allies refusing to serve in government, with the Israeli leader triggering a political crisis that led to 5 elections in less than 4 years, beginning in 2019. Netanyahu's supporters view the charges as a result of a bias and overreach by the justice system. Despite the pressure, Netanyahu has rejected calls to step down and has used his position as Prime Minister to lash out at law enforcement, media and courts. An Israeli court rejects a request by Netanyahu's lawyers to reduce the expected number of hours and testimonies, as well as several other requests to delay its start, which said they were necessary because of the Prime Minister's busy schedule at the country's significant challenges. A verdict isn't expected until 2026 at the earliest, and Netanyahu will have the option to appeal to the Supreme Court. So 2026, guys. I mean, that's 2 years. Well, a year. We still have a full 2025 year. So much can happen between then and then. Since the trial began in 2020, the court has heard prosecutors and witnesses in the 3 cases, including some of Netanyahu's once closest aides who turned state witness. The prosecution has tried to portray the Prime Minister as an image-obsessed leader who broke the law to improve his public perception. Netanyahu's testimony could further tarnish his image at his complicated time. His popular support dropped after Hamas' October 7th, 2023 attack, with the public blaming his leadership for failing to prevent the assault. And if elections were held today, he would struggle to form a government. Israel is still fighting Hamas in Gaza with no end in sight. Despite heavy international pressure to wind down the war, as well as pressure from the families of hostages held in Gaza and their supporters to bring their loved ones home. The Israeli leader, along with his former defense minister, also faces arrest warrant from the International Criminal Court for alleged war crimes charges related to the war in Gaza. The warrant puts Netanyahu on the same compass as Russian President Vladimir Putin and the former Sudanese leader Omar al-Bashir. Dear, oh dear. Well, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with this, if I'm honest. It is weird to see him in the trial. It's weird to see that picture. I haven't seen any video footage, but it's weird to see it. Mark Tefler, good to see you there, buddy. Hope you're doing well. But I guess we just have to just keep an eye on it and see what happens. I mean, I suppose if you know, how much longer can he keep this going? It's just, yeah, Israel are divided. I mean, obviously, most of them are happy with what they're doing, which is, you know, some of the Israeli public are happy with what they're doing, which the world is telling them, no, what you're doing in Gaza is wrong. What you guys what happened in Lebanon, the way you conducted yourself was wrong. What you're doing right now, taking land in Syria, especially in the Golan Heights, is wrong. But, and the West Bank, sorry, apologies, forgot about the West Bank as well. What they're doing there is wrong, but, you know, none of that gets mentioned, none of that gets mentioned. I know it's completely unrelated, but still. The guy needs to face the law. He needs to face the International Criminal Courts. But he knows he will lose if he faces them. He knows that. But I don't think he will. I'm just going to have a quick look in the chat. Jews all over the world have an even bigger target on their head. And after the Jews, the idiot crowd will go after the next target. Says Joe, with what I'm listening, I do not care what happens to Netanyahu's went out king. I worry about the Jews living all over the world because this corrupt Georgian maniac had an inspiration. Yeah, he has already been convicted of corruption, as has his wife and son. Yeah, appears to be. Not what a surprise. To be honest, I'm not surprised by that. If I'm honest, guys, I'm not surprised. Right, next story I got for you guys is from Ghana. One of the last couple. Well, as we head to the end of this year, guys, another election took place. Victorious John Mahama promises a new beginning for Ghana. And this was actually a peaceful election, guys. This was actually a peaceful one in Africa. Yeah, I'm not kidding. So Ghana's opposition candidate and former president John Mahama has promised a new beginning and a new direction for the country after being officially declared the winner of Saturday's presidential election. Mahama won with 56.6% of the 41.6% for the vice president Mamababu. I do apologize for mispronouncing the names. Bawama. It is the biggest margin of victory in the country for 24 years. Voter turnout was 60.9%, said the head of Ghana's Electoral Commission. Mabilia said he felt humbled that he and the National Democratic Congress, the NDC, had chalked one of the best results in the electoral history of Ghana. He also noted that Ghana had made history by choosing its first female vice president, Jane Nagilia. I can't say the rest, guys. Apologies. And he thanked Bawumia for conceding, which he did long before the official announcement of the results. The vice president said he was doing so to avoid further tension and preserve the peace of our country. Nevertheless, there was still some frustration that it took so long to announce the official results. President Nala is stepping down after reaching the official limit of 2 terms in office. This election comes amid the worst economic crisis in a generation. Unemployment, the cost of living, and concerns over the environment impact of illegal gold mining as well as gambling were among the key issues. With many Ghanaians desperate for a change, Mahama won several regions, including Bono, Afrono, Western, and Central, with the governing New Patriotic Party, the NPP, had won in 2020. Since Mahama's concession on Sunday, Mahama supporters have been celebrating across the country. People have been cheering, waving flags, blowing horns and spinning motorbikes. I'm so excited for this victory, Safru Abdul had told the BBC in the central city of Damascus. He said he hoped it would mean that he and his siblings would get jobs while the price of food and fuel would come down. Well, there it is there between the two parties. You can see the presidential results. They've even got the numbers here. Like, this is how, like, you can see the official numbers as well. Like a proper democratic as well, guys. Here from different parts of Ghana. Very, you know, this is so awesome to see that it's actually been peaceful. Well, the result has come through, and there's not like rigging or numbers are wrong or something like this. This is really cool. I'm so happy here. Happy for the people of Ghana. Although the election was generally peaceful, 2 people were shot dead on Saturday in separate incidents. The Electoral Commission office in the northern town of Damascus was also destroyed, allegedly by NDC supporters angry at the delays in announcing the results. Mabilia, 65, previously led Ghana from 2012 until 2017, and he was replaced by Afil Adlo. Mahama also lost the election in 2020, so this victory represents a stunning comeback. His DNC and the governing New Patriotic Party have alternated in power since the return of the multi-party politics to Ghana in 1992. No party has ever won more than 2 consecutive terms in power, a trend that looks set to continue. Mahama's previous time in office was marred by alienating the economy, frequent power cuts and corruption scandal. However, Ghanaians hope it will be different this time around. During the campaign, Malia promised to transfer Ghana into a 24-hour economy. The new president will be sworn in on the 7th of January 2025. Well, I hope this picture here really does, you know, I wish the people of Ghana all the best. I really hope it turns out well for them. I generally do, guys. I really, really do. In all seriousness, you know, it's good to see that, even though it took a while for the election to come through, it's good to see that, you know, the current, you know, they conceded defeat and it seems to be peaceful and whatnot. You know, it's nice to hear. It's nice to hear, especially in a continent that suffers, with many nations on that continent that suffer quite a lot. So I really do hope, in the long, obviously when the new government comes to power, that they do try to get control of some of these things. Obviously, some of these things will be out of their control, but I just, you know, I wish them all the best, you know, in 2025. I really, really hope so. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on things whenever I possibly can, but yes, another election in the bag for 2024, you guys. And I'm not going to cover it in full because of the time, because I do want to give you guys the funny memes before we head out. So I'll just talk a little bit briefly about this one from Euronews. So the EU seeks to reduce defensive dependency on the US over the long term, said the commission official. So the EU will vow a strong transatlantic partnership on defence, a senior commission official said yesterday, Monday. But dependence on foreign supplies will inevitably have to be addressed in the long term. So unfortunately, like, as we want to become less reliant on the US, that is something that, as I'm pretty sure everybody will agree in the chat, it's not something we can just switch off a light switch. Even with Donald Trump coming in and making the threats that he can make, we still want to be less dependent, as little as dependent on America as possible in terms of defense from Russia or potential other threats. Russia is obviously the main threat, but I think, as in terms of here and now, like, Russia are crippled. You know, their army is crippled. They are a country that is exhausted. Their citizens are exhausted. Their economy is flatlining. You know, people are struggling. You know, Russia are in a really, really bad state. So it will take a long time. It will take a good, like, 5-10 years, maybe even longer than that, for Russia to get back to what it was before. If that's because that's what's Putin's desire, isn't it? You know, he'll want that he'll want that in the down the road. So as of right here, right now, like if Putin was to strike at NATO, you know, I generally believe that if I generally believe we would topple them. We would topple them. You know, unless of course it goes nuclear, which God forbid that would happen. But I do think that was what will be the case. Dave McGuinness, good to see you there, buddy. Hope you're doing well. But yeah, this obviously makes sense. You know, we need to stop relying on America and try to look after ourselves. And this is exactly what the EU needs to do. You know, build up defenses, enshrine our alliances even further. You know, do whatever it takes to protect the borders. You know, when I say protect our borders, I'm thinking immigration reference, but more from a Russian perspective. But I do think that's really, really important there. But I'll leave the article linked in the description of this live stream if anyone wants to read it. Only based on time, which is why I'm not going to leave it there. But I do hope that in the next couple of years, over time, as you know, slowly, surely, European and the EU becomes less reliant on America and becomes more reliant on themselves getting the things that they need, and becomes more and more of a powerhouse over time. At least I generally believe that's what will be going down anyway as things come along. Stephen Banker, good to see you there, buddy. Hope you're doing well. So guys, we're about 15 minutes away before Max goes live with his live stream, and yeah, I could have covered, you know, I was just a bit conscious of time, guys. So before I head out, guys, I just want to say thank you guys for coming along. But what we do here on the Snowflake Corner, for those who don't know, I drop some funny memes just to shake things up a little bit, you know, just for having a bit of fun and whatnot. And as you guys know, it's Christmas time as well, so have a bit of fun. And obviously, last Snowflake Corner we had, I believe it was last week. If it wasn't, it might be 2 weeks ago. We had the 2-hour special where, of course, obviously 50 episodes of the Snowflake Corner. Massive achievement to have 50 episodes of this live stream. So it's you know, this when I started this, you know, I was wasn't sure how I was going to do with this, you know, but covering all these stories outside the UK, it's very informative and helpful to me, and I hope it's been informative and helpful to you guys as I continue. You know, I actually contemplated whether or not I should continue the Snowflake Corner and actually do start a different one in the new year, but I've decided that I'm going to continue this live stream will continue into the new year, and it will continue on Tuesdays. I may switch it to 6 o'clock instead of 7 o'clock. I may do it up till like 7:30 instead in the new year. I haven't made a final decision on that instead. So I haven't made the final decision on that. I'm not going to have afternoon live streams anymore, apart from Prime Minister's questions. I think, yeah, better evening ones are more preferable. But yeah, I will be. This is the Snowflake Viewpoint, the Snowflake Corner, and the Snowflake Watch. These 3 live streams are all guaranteed to continue into the new year. As for every other one, you know, Snowflake Conflict is very unlikely. Prime Minister's questions, I will continue to do that because I know people like me covering it, so I will continue to do that whenever. And then there's obviously the Snowflake talks and roundtables and whatnot. But I just wanted to let you guys know that those 3 live streams are definitely staying on into the new year. Right, so before I lose my voice, because I am starting to lose my voice a bit because I've been talking quite a bit today. So I've got 5 funny memes for you guys. So I hope you guys enjoy these funny ones. Let's see if I can get a laugh out of you guys for these. Let me just make sure they're all okay. Yep. Okay. Okay, here we go. Funny memes. Hey there, are you able to edit this just so I can have wings? Enjoy! She didn't say what kind of wings. When your guardian angel is tired of your bullshit. These stones have had enough. They've had enough of you guys. You hear me? Mum told us to play outside. That's what they're doing. Playing Mario Kart outside. Literally on the big screen. So, you know, totally cool. Some days it's hard to find motivation. But some days, motivation finds you. I'd like to report an incident. Did you know Hoot did it? So 8 people were murdered. Oh, that face of the owl there. It's like, officer, don't mock me. 8 people were murdered. How dare you mock me? I'm trying to help your situation here, officer. I hope you found a hooting hoot fun. Oh, that was a foul pun. I hope you found those funny memes a bit of a laugh anyway, guys. We've got one more Snowflake's Corner next week, yeah, as well. Before the new year as well. Before Christmas, actually, as well. So I hope you guys got a bit of a laugh out of them anyway, that's for sure, guys. Right, I'm just going to quickly, before I go, guys, a reminder, tomorrow there is a Prime Minister's Questions. I'm going to assume it's Deputy Prime Minister's Questions. I'm 90% confident it's not going to be normal Prime Minister's Questions, but I will cover it. I will cover it tomorrow for you guys, and then I will be back at 8 o'clock with the Snowflake Watch. So do join me for both them. If you can join me for them, it'd be greatly appreciated. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who's come along. Thank you guys all for your comments. Thank you guys for giving your time to I hope you found today's news that we covered informative, helpful to you guys, and perhaps maybe seen or hear stories, but perhaps you maybe didn't know about initially as well. So yeah, let me know your feedback down in the comments below of this live stream, what you guys thought. I will be there before the live stream starts. I have to go and catch my dinner as well, but thank you guys all for coming along. But just before I head out, Ollie would like to say thank you for coming along as well. Ollie there, sitting on top of Pingu Cash. I know you haven't seen the gang for a while, but they are here, hiding behind me. So, but we'll see a bit more of them on the Friday lights on the live stream as well, guys. So just before I head out, guys, I just have one last thing to say. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share this across social media so others are notified of this live stream. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.